Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. All right, we're back. I guess we're not back. We're here at the end of the game. Megan, Avs dropped this one 5-3 tonight in Carolina. They made a push at the end of the game. I'm not using the word good. I'm not saying they made a strong push. I'm not saying that they didn't quit, didn't give them the game. Megan, I did not like this game really for the last 55 minutes of it. I did not like it. I didn't like the effort, and it felt like it took way too long for the Avs to get in gear. And right as they make it interesting, they just can't seem to get out of their own way. Avs drop it 5-3. Partial credit for the pushback for you, or not even?
You know, when your mom's coming home and you're supposed to clean your room, so you pick up all your clothes and you throw them in the closet, your room still isn't clean.
Yeah.
You put this performative effort on top, but it doesn't change the fact that your room isn't clean. The Avs room is dirty. Yeah. I don't love this effort because it's too little too late. I like that they make a push at all. There is that pride component. I would have felt worse if this had finished that 1-goal game I talked about coming out of the second period. But they're just a better team. We know them to be a better team. I'm glad they get a couple more in there. I'll give Val Nichushkin some individual credit for that.
Sure.
But it shouldn't have been that late pushback. There should have been more of that pushback from the drop of the puck in the third period.
Excuse me, let's unpack that third period a little bit before we step back and look at the whole of the game. Megan, you and I during the second intermission said this team needs to come out and have a really strong start to the third period. If you want to climb back in this game against a stingy Carolina Hurricanes team, a team that is strong defensively, a team that likes to possess the puck, you've got to come out with a really strong effort to start. The Avs are handed a 5-on-3 within the first 2 minutes of the period. From the couple angles we saw, I thought it was I see why the ref called it. The Carolina Hurricanes and the players and their bench clearly disagreed, so there must have been another angle that they saw that they didn't like on the replay. But the Avs kind of get a gift of a 5-on-3 and do absolutely nothing with it.
Yeah, it's the way the power play converted the whole game in that they didn't. There's some tape-to-tape passing happening, but even then, there's a disconnect. I feel like it grew worse by the third period to the point where passes were no longer connecting and pucks were, being sent just wide of the recipient. And I think that kind of encapsulates this game because these are guys who are quite familiar with playing with one another and have historical chemistry. I just don't think they were really mentally completely locked into this game tonight.
I was going to say the mentally locked in is 100% right. I also just feel like it was and I think this is where the reason I hesitated to agree with you on that was I felt like they weren't physically engaged, but I feel like that stems from not being. I love the way Cale Makar put it last week, 2 weeks ago. Brain not turned on. It felt like the Avs struggled to get the puck up and out of their zone the entire game, even though that was clearly something that Carolina had keyed in on early, was making sure that pucks don't get out of the zone, which is something I want to circle back to, by the way, just in terms of the way that the Hurricanes were playing. There's something I like. The Avs never were able to adjust is where I'm going with this. This was something that Carolina had clearly keyed in on early, pressure them coming out of the zone, all over pucks in Carolina's offensive zone and the neutral zone, force them to turn plays around, force pucks to be turned over, and the Avs just never were able to find an answer for that. And that was the part to me that was frustrating to watch. It didn't feel like adjustments were being made, or at least not the right adjustments were being made, whether it be from coaching or from players on the ice. They could not get out of their own zone the entire game. And that, to me, when something plagues you in the first 5 minutes all the way through to the end of the game, that's just frustrating to watch. You got to be able to adjust.
It is frustrating, and I think you're right to call out the physical engagement because we talked about not winning battles and being unable to establish the zone and create anything of meaning offensively. And it was true by the end of it all of the opportunities on net that I saw the Avs generate seemed to come from some kind of breakaway, partial breakaway, off-man rush, which is really cool, but that shouldn't be strictly where your offense comes. It should be also calculated, intentional. You should be able to enter and establish the zone. And as we established in the second period, you have to win battles to do that. And that's why I think the offense created that we did see was created in such a way. It's a lot of individual effort, but there was a lack of cohesion tonight, a lack of the team playing together as a 5-man unit, a lot of great individual efforts to include several breakaway chances, but not a lot of the team working together to create better hockey.
I think that's a great way of putting it, was that they felt disconnected tonight. You and I were even remarking on that in the last few minutes of the game, was passes felt a step behind. Players themselves individually felt a step slow in instances where they were needing to escape pressure, make a play, make a pass, get a puck off their stick. Everything just felt a step behind tonight. And what feels especially disappointing for me, Megan, you got the first goal. You had the first lead of the game. You weren't trailing a minute in like you have been so frequently this season. You got off to maybe not a perfect start, but you got a lead early. And for then the kind of effort to turn in that was after that, this is a disappointing effort for me tonight.
It is disappointing. I think Briggsy brings up an interesting stat in the hits. The Avs out-hit Carolina 22-13. And I actually think it's interesting because the way in which they were losing battles wasn't just a clean check, strip them of the puck. They were having their pockets picked. And I think that is another part of the mental game. But also I think Briggsy is right to call out losing some races, except for that icing call. Nathan MacKinnon won it clean.
So let's just real quick. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this at all. But that was one of the weirder things that I've seen. And not only was it one of the weirder whistles that I've seen, but like I was shocked that they didn't correct it. Nathan MacKinnon was clearly 2 steps ahead on that icing call and was clearly a stride ahead even at the top of the circles. I actually thought they were going to blow that dead. And then I think I even said out loud, oh, they'll drop that puck at center.
They'll correct this.
And they didn't. And again, nothing came of it, so it doesn't matter. But I just thought that was a really bizarre call.
I think it was too. Can we get a quick mic check on me? Am I a little quiet right now?
You're just always quiet.
I'll raise my voice because I'm actually angry at the Avs right now.
I saw the one that was like, Jesse's way louder than Megan. I was like, on the show or in life? I'm like,
yeah. Is this a general observation?
Is this something you're just noticing now, or are our mics off? You made the joke after that icing because the Avs ended up on a 5-on-3. You said, man, they feel really bad about that icing call. Well, we can move on. I just thought that was clearly a wrong call that, again, didn't end up favoring one team or the other, but that was one of the more perplexing hybrid icing whistles I've seen in a while.
Yeah, what I didn't like is the disrespect to who Nathan MacKinnon is. One, he's so visibly ahead, but also he's Nathan MacKinnon. What are you doing?
He's gonna win that. He's gonna win that race. All right, Megan, let's go back to the top here for this game because I think you and I are aligned. They get out to a lead. It was a decent start. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect, but it was an okay start. And you get the first goal of the game. And for me, from there, that was where they just started to slip a little bit. We talked about they got out of that first period 1-1. I think there was a lot of good things to build on. Relative to where we were at in that first intermission, do you feel like the Avs trended up or trended down from the first 20 minutes?
It was a little bit like this.
Yeah.
I did think they made improvements in the second period, but it dipped after that point. And I'm actually looking at the analytics, and it kind of tells this same story, though I think the third period by the numbers favors them compared to the first. It still feels like it was effort too little too late. I think that some of the effort at the end of that period probably padded the overall third period picture for the Colorado Avalanche. But to open the period and not even create more chances on the 5v3 opportunity, which there was an Etruscan and a Makar chance, but neither shot actually make it on net. It's frustrating. Like, this is where there was clearly some kind of disconnect, because some of that is connecting initially, but it doesn't result on a shot on goal. And I think that's what makes the third period feel the most disappointing of all. And so it does feel like there was this little upward trend into the second period, and then it just fell. To take a too many men call right after the game gets interesting as a result of Val Nichushkin's effort, one speaks to a little bit of confusion on the bench.
Yes.
And this is a team of pros. They shouldn't be making these kinds of mistakes when they're trying to launch a comeback, and they just got a little bit of life back in them. That absolutely took the wind out of their sails.
And I almost felt like that was just a microcosm of the entire game, Megan, where it was just they struggled to get out of their own way in so many different instances, where I felt like Carolina really kind of, I mean, I said it in the second intermission, I felt like Carolina took over in a way where they just slowed things down and they dictated pace and they dictated style and they dictated flow. But at the same time, there were just so many instances where I felt like the Avs shot themselves in the foot, and all of that was exemplified in the penalty that comes right after they make it interesting. Right after you get it back close and you're about to make a push, and you take it too many men. It's just so tough.
I don't like, too, the Mikko Rantanen frustration penalty.
Yes.
It's another where you just had a very bad man advantage opportunity, and now you're letting your frustrations boil over and hurt the team. If it had been him trying to make a defensive play, maybe I could justify it a little bit, but it's just a pure frustration penalty. And that's another, like, between the too many men, the frustration penalty, this is where they're clearly not in, like, they're clearly in their own heads. And I think it translated to the physical engagement issue we're talking about.
The part that is frustrating, I think, probably if you're Jared Bednar here tonight, is we've seen them channel frustration in a positive way. I think you could even go back just 2 nights and say that was a game where they were frustrated. There were guys, Nathan McKinnon, who clearly looked angry, and they found a way to channel that into better play. Tonight, I felt like a lot of it was channeled into dumb mistakes, plays that you kept pointing out, Megan, like, you're like, who is this? Just uncharacteristic stuff up and down the ice. And when the Avs channel their frustration and the anger in a positive way, I feel like it usually leads to better play. Tonight, it just felt like kind of the opposite. They got frustrated, they got pissed off, and they just started doing stuff that was out of the ordinary for them.
Missing passes, too, and, Casey Middlestat, a player who struggled throughout this game, a victim to that, but not him alone. Lehkonen, too. The whole of the top 6, I think that led to some of their creation troubles, too. And it's not typical of them to not be able to connect with one another.
And that's where you do wonder about, like you were saying, where the brains turned on, again, using Cale Makar's words, that's not me saying that, where the brains turned on in the right way. And the part that I think is the most disappointing to me is that we said going into the third period, you want to do some positive things that you can build on. Again, yes, they physically made a pushback in the game by the way the scoreboard looked. But Megan, like I said off the top, like I really don't even view this one for me as they didn't quit. They really pushed back. That almost felt like they kind of backed into a couple of goals there late to make the score look interesting. Give Scott Wedgwood credit. It was 3-1 going into the third, and he kept them in it enough to the point that they were able to at least score a goal and make it interesting. I'm going to stop just shy of saying they were able to really push back and make this a hard-fought competitive game. Just disappointing overall. Anything else overarching that you want to talk about before we get into a couple smaller specifics here.
Will one of the specifics be power play?
Sure will.
All right, then let's dig into the specifics.
Let's start there. Was that a power play goal late?
It was.
It was
Um,
on a 6-on-4, right?
and so for Carolina.
Oh no! I'm sorry, for the Avs.
Oh,
The one that Val scored, or was it just 6-on-5?
Yep, that was.
It was just 6-on-5, right? So, do you want to start with Avs power play or Avs penalty kill?
Power play.
Because both were a problem tonight.
Yeah.
The glaring errors come, or the glaring issues come at the start of the third period. Yeah, you're not going to score on every power play you get. That's understandable. You're down 3-1. It's desperation time. You get a 5-on-3 against a stingy defensive team, a team that you needed a couple things to break your way in order to climb back into this game. You get the 5-on-3 and you generate nothing on it, Megan.
I'm looking at the whole of the night too. Like they have 3 power play chances, technically 2, like an additional, I guess, or the 5v3 advantage is stacked atop the start of what would eventually be the 5v4. And even still, the whole of the night translates to something like 2 shots on net in all of those opportunities. It's just unacceptable for a top unit and a second unit with as much talent on it as there has been. And it's frustrating to see the whole of the power play take a decline. We noticed it in the month of November, and it's trending that way into December as well. So this is clearly something that's troubling this team for a little bit now. They haven't worked through, but because it started so good, there's better that they're capable of right now.
And so let's go back. The third period 5-on-3 was obviously a huge issue. That comes at a key time where you really needed something and you couldn't get it. Okay. So that's one. Let's go back earlier in the game here to something that we talked about in the first intermission in terms of really giving the Hurricanes momentum. The Avs get an early power play right after scoring a goal to take a lead in the first period. The Avs get a power play, and not only do they not generate anything, not only do they not score, not only do they not really generate much of anything, they give up a shorthanded chance that leads to them taking a penalty of their own. Tonight, you could really make the argument that not only did the power play not help them, it actively hurt them at one point in this game.
It did. And it's where their mistakes in creating leave vulnerabilities the other way. They allow a shorthanded chance with Taves trying to get back, and then they put themselves at a disadvantage. And so it adds insult to injury. And I think that they're trying, I don't know what they're trying. Like they're trying too hard to force the offense, and it's leading to mistakes, and it's leading to uncharacteristic mistakes, and it's leading to a disconnect. And I know they're capable of better. We've talked about the overpassing issue with the power play. And honestly, I think overpassing was a little bit of an issue tonight on the whole for the Avs, just because they were not able to generate much on net. You just wanted to see them start shooting. And I do look to the power play then sometimes as like a symptom of the larger problem affecting the team. And I do hate to go back to, the mental component that seemed to trouble them in tonight's game. But I think why I add emphasis to that is coming on the heels of what was such a brilliant comeback.
Yep.
I thought this would have a bigger impact on the team coming into tonight.
Me too.
That it would be this huge boost, such a character-defining win to go into a game against a good Carolina team. And I think that's where I'm just a little disappointed in them.
It feels, I agree. It feels to me like this power play is gripping the stick, overpassing. Things aren't going, so they're looking for the perfect right play, sneak it in there, get that one extra little touch pass to the bumper. Both of Val Nichushkin's goals tonight come off the fact that he's just putting pucks to the net. Throwing pucks on net, 5-hole, get to the front, banging a rebound. Like it feels to me like the power play has gotten frustrated and it's gotten too cute. And that to me, because there really isn't much of a reason why this power play, we just had Brendan's comment here on the screen. there's not much of a reason why this power play with this type of firepower should look this bad. You're not obviously going to score on every power play that you get. You're not going to be, clicking at 85, 90% all season. But it's the fact that they look so many out of, like, not so many, they look so out of sorts. They can't establish the zone. When they do establish the zone, it feels like the passes are being bobbled. It feels like they're turning pucks over easily. And one of the hallmarks of this team that I think has been so strong in the past has been their puck retrievals and being able to keep zone time alive on power plays. They're not doing that right now. And that to me is a symptom of what you were talking about, of overpassing, looking for too much of the perfect play. And it's leading to uncharacteristic turnovers and really entire power plays on the whole.
I think, too, when you think of the broken play because of overpassing, that's where a puck ends up somewhere unexpected and where it shouldn't be, and that leads to premature exits and the Avs needing to reset and re-enter, which is just challenging because the PK is designed to try and make that as difficult as possible. And to your point, I don't think they're coming up with pucks because they're losing it in ways they're not anticipating. It's not off of a rebound that just, went on that and deflected elsewhere. It's because of a broken play. And so I think that, to your point, I watched the Avs a couple times tonight. A player on the power play gets the puck on their stick, and they try to drive inside ice more by skating it in rather than just taking the shot. And I see the intent behind it, but Carolina has a great PK, and it was stopped. It was not even a chance anymore. And I think that goes back to the one pass too many. It was like the minute that puck was on your stick should have been the shot attempt. It didn't need to be one more passing play, because now you're at the front of the net and the puck is gone and you're really deep in the O zone and there's nobody there to get that puck in the back. And so you're going to have to reset and re-enter. And that's another physical engagement thing too, in the Avs being less skilled and coming up with some of those pucks too. I think that they played a little bit soft tonight. I know the hits category tells a different story, but I think they coughed up pucks too easily.
I don't always trust the stat keeping of hits and all that stuff. So that could even be a little bit misleading as well. I agree with you
about how that sometimes gets
those numbers can change. Absolutely. And so here's something just interesting relative to what you were just talking about getting pucks to the net. Just people in the chat talking about Ross Colton. Part of the reason I think things were working so well for Ross Colton early in this season, especially on the power play, was he was sitting in that bumper spot and he wasn't touching the puck back. He was loaded up and he was shooting. If that puck was hitting his stick, he was putting it on net.
Yeah. One swift motion.
Yes. And I feel like that's a little bit of what the power play is missing right now, is just fire that puck on net.
Yeah, I think they're taking too long to try and settle a puck once it's on their stick, and they're being too careful about where they want to send it, and it allows the other team to counter the time and space that they're able to then create as a result of that. Just a second delay, because the Avs are in search of a perfect play instead of just any play.
I agree with you. I think that's exactly the diagnosis on what we're seeing from the power play.
And Casey Middlestat, I kind of zoom in, like I'm talking about some of the offensive troubles of the team right now, just generally, but I think that's Casey Middlestat's problem. I think that he's hesitating a little too much when he does have the puck. I think this is causing him to miss pucks coming to him, hold on to them too long when he has them, and then he misses opportunities, and it leads to turnovers because he allowed just a little bit too much time and space.
I think you're spot on. I think you're spot on. And Casey, even as this game went on, we talked about, is this going to, is moving him down? Is it going to motivate him? Is it going to frustrate him? I don't really think it was necessarily either of those, but I didn't see him working through any of that stuff, trying to simplify his game down a little bit. And that's what I feel like they need to do on the power play in general, is simplify back, get back to what makes you successful. You have elite shooters on this power play. Put the puck to the net. But Casey Middlestat in particular, I'm with you. I want to see him simplify that game back down a lot more than it is right now.
Well, I think we kind of talked about the way in which he was demoted to a third, fourth line role tonight in terms of talent around him. And this team is so depleted. It's kind of the story for everyone right now.
Yep.
But I think that is something that can be helpful with a little more time to jumpstart his game, because I think when you're playing with players of a different skill set, you don't need to find the perfect player. You just need to find your teammate. And I think Casey is such a smart player who can do that. And so playing a little lower in the lineup, maybe it'll take some of that edge off of playing with such highly skilled players and feeling like you also need to come up with this brilliant high IQ play. You just need to find your teammate. I think maybe this could benefit him if it persists into the next game.
Let's wind the show down a little bit here, Megan. We'll grab a couple questions before we go out, but I want to talk about the penalty kill as well. 2 of these goals, one's an empty netter, so wipe that one out. 2 of these goals against do come on the power play, including one late where you take a too many men on the ice penalty with less than 3 minutes to go, and it ends up costing you a goal, and that really was kind of the end of the game. Technically, each team scored one more time after that, but that power play goal for the Carolina Hurricanes really felt like it put this one away for them. The Avs got to get the penalty kill in order as well. As much as they got to clean things up on the power play side of it, they are a bottom 3 team on the penalty kill. And yes, you can make the argument that that number on the whole of the season is, your goaltender's got to be your best penalty killer. They haven't always gotten the goaltending. Sure. You can make that argument a little bit, but tonight, it's the difference in the game. 2 power play goals against are the difference in the game, including one late.
2 out of 5 opportunities, which also is why the frustration Mikko penalty. It's like you didn't need to exacerbate a discipline issue that existed tonight. And you look at the kill throughout the course of the game, probably not a piece that I'm going to take into the next game as a huge worry, because I love the kill in the first period. We pointed out our issues with the kill in the second period, how guys deviated from what they were supposed to do. And Carolina baited them into it. That kind of goes back to the overarching worry of guys not playing the team game and playing the individual game, and individually doing things that deviated from how they're supposed to kill on the penalty, which leads to a system breakdown, which leads to goals against. I think that if they stick to the way that they are supposed to defend on the kill, the results are a little bit better. So then I look at the kill on the Netchus goal in the third period, and I think it's defended better. It's just a really great play from Carolina. There's little things I'd like to clean up there, maybe defending the net front a little tougher. At that point, it's not a net front guy who causes that goal, but it is just another body in front of your goalie taking out his line of vision that make it a little harder then for guys to plant themselves at the crease. That's maybe my criticism of that kill and that goal against. But otherwise, I'm like, those seem like things they can clean up, so I'm not super worried about it. It's like, all right, you strayed a little from what you were supposed to be doing in that second period. You kind of did the right things in the third. I really think that's something they can build on. I'm sitting here most panicked about the power play, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's not that it's not clicking, it's how off it looks. We've seen this group go through stretches where they're not scoring on the power play. That's one thing. That was what I mentioned earlier. This isn't a lack of goals on the power play. This is like what are we even looking at relative to what we've come to expect from this team. Checking in around the league, St. Louis Blues lead the Calgary Flames 2-1. The Blues chasing the Avs chasing the Flames in the playoff picture. Oilers and Blue Jackets currently tied at 1 in the second period. Another team that the Avs are right on the heels of in that wild card picture. Get your questions in right now. We got a couple questions coming in. Starting with the super chat from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. $5 from Ryan B. How do the vibes seem in and around the locker room to you? Injuries aside, they're so disjointed. Feels like they're not clicking in any capacity. We talked about this the other day because I don't sense any additional frustration that we haven't seen before. I don't sense any animosity, any headbutting, anything like that. I really don't. And I think you kind of made a mention of this earlier. Part of the reason why I think this result was so disappointing was it felt like the vibes were very high coming off that last game. So I think they're frustrated because it's been up and down, and this group is not used to it being up and down, but I don't think any more frustrated than we'd normally see.
No, I don't think so. I think there's maybe a healthy dose of frustration to feel amongst themselves because they saw with the late push that they were capable of a better fate tonight, but they got the result they deserved because for too much of this game, they did too little.
Thankfully, Saturday and Sunday, we get more of this studio. Here's to hoping everyone have a good hair weekend. Yes, we will be back in the studio this weekend. I saw a comment come through earlier asking if we will be back on the road. We will be back on the road. This was all, as Jared Bednar likes to put it, scheduled starts for us here in the studio. And truthfully, we actually talked about this on the first studio show. This was the plan last year. The plan last year was to go to about half the road games and do the rest of them in here. And our bosses here at Guerilla Sports they're like, no, let's just keep going. Let's just head back out on the road. So I have argued this year for us to do some studio shows. So this is all part of the plan. Scheduled starts. We will definitely be back on the road bringing you guys plenty of coverage and locker room access from the road. But Megan, I'm having a ton of fun sitting here chatting with you these last few games. I'm looking forward to doing it more this weekend.
Buffalo gave us such a good post game because of that comeback. This one does feel a little bit deflating.
Yep.
But there is still plenty of road trip left ahead for the Avs. And I am not saying this was a good Scott Wedgwood performance. I think it was enough to give them a chance to win. They just didn't do enough of what they needed in front of him to provide goal support. That, to me, though, is something to build on. That, one, they had a better first period than we're used to seeing. And two, I think that Scott Wedgwood came up with some saves and moments we didn't expect. There's some ones I think we'd like to see back, but I think that's overall. All right, I'm looking at the expected goals against. Hasn't updated. 1 second. I wanted to get the final number to see where we're coming in.
While Megan's doing that, Abby, to answer your question, I think you got it in the chat. Drop a couple questions here. We'll take a couple more before we jump out. Do you mind if I pull up another question?
No,
real
go
fast?
ahead. I don't think it's quite loading.
Not ready yet. All right, this one from Brendan, my guy. Brendan, tough question here. Do you feel Bedsy's message isn't getting across completely? Lots of bad efforts recently. No, I don't feel like that. Being around the team, talking to guys, we've talked to guys before. We've seen instances where coaches have lost rooms. That to me is not what the situation is here. In fact, I actually think he's got a message that a lot of players are really liking right now of, hey, we're really depleted. We're fighting uphill every day as it is. Take a lot of pride in what you're doing and fight for the guys that are in the room with you right now. I do. I just think that there's some frustration that is just boiling over intermittently because this has been such an up and down start to the season. I think this team is a little uncomfortable right now. I think this team isn't used to being in a situation like this where we're past the quarter mark of the season and they are in a tussle for playoff, not even playoff position, a playoff spot. So I just think that this is every season, every team, every iteration of a team has a different story. And I think the story for this team this year has been more frustrating than we've seen in seasons past. But for me, until I'm told by someone who's in the know, I do not think Jared Bednar is anywhere near the problem for what's happening with the up and downness this season.
No, and I look to what the leaders of this team are consistently saying, the Devon Taves, Josh Mansons, and Cale Makars of the team. And there is a common thread in what they're saying brings them success, what they need to be doing better. And they have their own way of saying it, which makes me feel they're not just regurgitating exactly what's being told to them, from these meetings with coaches. I think that they personally believe it too. And I can just tell in how they talk about it. And it all comes back to effort and process. Honestly, they talk about when they stray from the details of their game, or the effort isn't 100% there, or the attention to detail isn't 100% there. That's when the results suffer. And I think that's because that's what they're seeing to us too. I don't feel like this messaging is being lost. At the end of the day, they are professional athletes too, who have a job to execute. Sometimes they don't. And I think that's what they'll look at tonight specifically and reflect on a little bit, that they fell short in terms of execution, and I think they know that.
I think that's the best way to put it. Fell short for execution. All right, we're going to fly through. I think I got 3 more kind of quick ones here that we can kind of just run through. First one here from Daniel. Any chance you put Mitts on the wing and run Ross Colton at center if this is still a problem when Colton gets back? Now, Jared Bednar did tell us that the plan is to run Ross Colton on the wing when he gets back. And I don't know, though, Megan, maybe playing Ross Colton on Casey Middlestad's wing could go a little bit of a ways for both players. The only reason I'm going to say no to this is because Jared Bednar already told us that they're going to put Ross on the wing at first.
Yeah, Casey's got to work through it. He's their 2C for the future, so he needs to figure it out as a centerman. And I want to see him get his game going just as much as the next person. I think it's been tough given what highs we've seen of his game so far. But I think, one, this is another positive to look forward to that maybe we've glossed over, but Ross Colton inevitably close to returning at some point.
Yep.
I know we had a low point recently where we were being asked if we felt differently about this team because there were no reinforcements on the way, but there are reinforcements on the way in the form of Ross Colton. I do think that makes a huge difference when he gets back. I'm sure it'll take him a little time to get back up to game speed.
Shake the rust,
but I'm feeling some optimism around that. I think, too, just looking to the game in Detroit, that is a game, clean slate, fresh start, that they should be able to win.
So far, how does Wedge seem to be fitting into the locker room? Does he get along well with everyone? That's again, we get snapshots of the locker room. When these guys leave the changing room or leave the locker room and go back to the changing room and all that stuff, we don't see how they interact. But from everything that I've been able to see, I don't know how you don't get along with this guy. And I made a big point. I don't think it was on a show. But Megan, the video of Scott Wedgwood getting the big hat comes out after last game. Mm-hmm. And I tweeted out, I said, this right here is why they brought him in. Not because he's capable of being player of the game, but because his post-game speech wasn't, hey, great win, boys, let's keep it going. He said, when I got here, the first thing I said was, you guys are never out of it. And then he said, 4 lines, 6D, 2 10Ds all year. He found a way in a game where he came in relief, gave up no goals, and was the goalie of record to get the win. He found a way to say, hey, it took 2 goaltenders to win this game. It took all 4 lines, it took all 3 pairs, and it took both goaltenders for us to win this game. That's leadership. I know he's a backup goalie, and I know, he's not out there driving the bus, but that is someone who understands how to be in a room. And when he told us that he was looking forward to getting to work with Alexander Georgiev and being a partner of his, that's what he's talking about. Takes both of us to win this game.
When asked about his strengths, he essentially said vibes. So I think I have a lot of confidence that he's being embraced by this team. I don't think it's any reflection of Justus Annunen either, but I do think the newness and just having something change when things had been going kind of wrong just makes the team feel good.
It can't hurt. How about that? Can't hurt. All right, quick ones, just rapid fire. Goalie rotation for Saturday and Sunday. We'll definitely see both goalies. Do you have a prediction on who gets which one? I believe it's Detroit, then Jersey.
Yeah. I feel like they should give Georgiev Jersey.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
And so go back to Wedgwood, Detroit, get the win, get the confidence up in the team especially, and then go a fresh Georgiev with New Jersey and give Georgiev this chance of, okay, you're getting your net back and you're getting a playoff Stanley Cup caliber team. Show us what you can do.
There you go. And then last one, I haven't seen anything, but it looks like in the chat there has been a slight update on it. This one says, anyone hear any developments recently on the new practice rink next to Ball? I know all of that construction was approved. I won't believe that they're putting in a practice rink till I walk into it, though, Megan. According to the chat here, Vic Lombardi said on the radio this morning that he got some specs. They're starting to get renders of what the practice facility will look like. Have you heard anything different?
No. I'm skeptical too, but hopeful. I can think of a lot of Avs players who would love a new practice facility.
I can as well. Guys, I think that's going to do it. Any final thoughts for you, Megan?
I wanted to read this one comment from Travis Brinkley on Twitter. I've seen rumblings of Middlestat slump frustrations, but is this not the exact type of regular season play former and beloved second-line center Kadri was known for? We good Avs fans chill. I think, Middlestat to Kadri is like a hard comparison, but I do think it is important to note the parallels of a player that we have seen better from in Middlestat being able to bounce back from a difficult period of hockey. Kadri was capable of it as well and ended up becoming such a vital piece in their Stanley Cup aspirations. I still believe Casey Middlestat is every bit a part of the current Colorado Avalanche team too.
Oh, totally. And I mean, what you like about him, and we've talked about this for a long time, is that he's young. He's still moldable. He's still becoming the player that he's going to be. I'm not worried about him long term, but you want to see him kicking into gear here sooner rather than later.
Definitely.
That's going to do it, guys. We'll be back at it this weekend. We've got a fun event on Sunday that'll be here in the studio. So we've got all kinds of fun content for you guys coming your way this weekend. But before any of that, we'll be back at it here in the studio tomorrow for another episode of Guerilla Sports Off Ice. We'll unpack a little bit more of what we haven't gotten into tonight upon some second watches and replays of things like that. And we'll preview the weekend as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. These 5 p.m. starts are nice. I must say. Thank you guys so much. Thomas back there behind the board doing an outstanding job here tonight, making sure that everything goes off without a hitch. So big shout out to him. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys are showing all of our partners, Landmark Lincoln, Trust and American Mortgage, some love. The best way to help support us right now is by supporting our partners. Go to their website, check them out. Trust and American Mortgage, see if they can help you make no payments until February and get you a lower interest rate on your mortgage. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. This has been Guerilla Sports. Avs, Hurricanes postgame. Avalanche shot this one 5-3. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.